Daf Yomi Tractate Bava Basra, page 27b. Top of the page with the words Vinak, Nin, Ima, etc. And he can acquire property that does not serve as a guarantee. In other words, movable property along with it. There are specific modes of acquisition for movable property. But if one is acquiring any amount of land at the same time as the movable property, the mode of acquisition employed to acquire land suffices for the acquisition of the movable property as well. Apparently, any amount of land is subject to first fruits, whereas according to Ula, a tree acquired with less than 16 cubits of land surrounding it draws nourishment from the land surrounding it and is exempt from first fruits. The Gemara rejects this. With what are we dealing here? We are dealing with wheat, which is subject to the halachot of first fruits and requires a very little land to nourish it. The Gemara comments that the language of the Mishnah is also precise, as it teaches land of any size, which indicates even a minuscule amount, and all normal trees certainly require more land than that. The Gemara affirms, learn from it, that it is so. The Gemara further suggests, come and hear proof from a Braita to Sefta Masrut 2:22. If there is a tree, part of which is in Eretz Yisrael, and part of which is outside of Eretz Yisrael, it is considered as though untithed produce, in other words, produce that is subject to the halachot of Trumot and tithes, and non-sacred produce that is exempt from the halachot of Trumot and tithes, are mixed together in each one of this tree's fruits. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, where Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, with regard to the fruits in the part of the tree that is growing in a place where there is an obligation to separate tithes, as in Eretz Yisrael, the owner is obligated to separate tithes with regard to the fruits that are growing in a place where there is an exemption from separating tithes. In other words, outside of Eretz Yisrael, the owner is exempt. The Gemara comments they disagree only in that one sage, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, holds that there is retroactive designation as brera, yesh brera, and therefore it is assumed that the nourishment drawn from Eretz Yisrael sustained the fruit that grew on that side of the tree, and the nourishment drawn from outside Eretz Yisrael sustained the fruit that grew there. And one sage, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, holds that there is no retroactive designation and the fruit is considered mixed. But if the tree grew entirely in a place where there is an exemption from separating tithes, for example, outside of Eretz Yisrael, in other words, outside Eretz Yisrael, all agree that the owner is exempt even though the tree might have roots within 16 cubits of Eretz Yisrael and draw nourishment from there. This presents a difficulty for the opinion of Ula, as he claims that the place from where a tree draws its nourishment is decisive with regard to first fruits. Hacha b'mayaskina and demasik tun The Gemara answers, with what are we dealing here? We are dealing with a case where a rock divides the roots up to the trunk, and therefore it is possible to distinguish between the parts of the tree that draw nutrients from Eretz Yisrael and the parts that draw nutrients from outside Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara asks, if so, what is the reasoning of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi? Why does he view the fruits as being a mixture? The Gemara answers, he holds that although there is division between the roots, they cannot be distinguished from one another, as they then become mixed in the body of the tree. The Gemara asks, with regard to what principle do they disagree? The Gemara answers, one sage, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, holds the air above the ground mixes the nutrients, and one sage, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, holds this part of the tree stands alone, and this part of the tree stands alone from the roots up to the branches, and it is as if the tree were cut along the line of the border. The Gemara raises a difficulty against Ula's opinion from a different perspective. And do roots extend 16 cubits and no more? Didn't we learn in the Mishnah 25b one must distance a tree 25 cubits from a cistern? This indicates that tree roots reach more than 16 cubits. Abaye said the roots extend further, but they weaken the ground only up to 16 cubits. With regard to an area many more distant than that, they do not weaken the ground. Okay? Concerning this matter, the Gemara relates that when Rav Dina came from Eretz Yisrael, he said, Rish Lakish raised a dilemma before Rabbi Yochanan with regard to a tree that is within 16 cubits of the boundary. What is the halacha? Rabbi Yochanan said to him, the owner is a robber, and one does not bring first fruits from it. Okay. By contrast, when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, he related that Rabbi Yochanan says both in the case of a tree that is close to a boundary and the tree that leans into another's yard, one brings first fruits and recites the verses as it was on this condition that Joshua apportioned Eretz Yisrael to the Jewish people. In other words, that they would not be particular about such matters. And for the rest of the Amud and completing the parak, we will do a separate video, which will be part 2.